So welcome back, dear students. I'm just going to continue from the previous topic. In the previous topic we have completed the uterus. Now we are starting with the other structures of the female reproductive system. The next structure of the female reproductive system is the vagina. Vagina is a kind of tube-like structure which is the continuation, or which we can say which is the continuation of the uterus. So uterus is open into a fibromuscular tube called as vagina. Uterus is open in a fibromuscular tube called as vagina. So you have seen in the previous lecture only, when we were discussing about the uterus only, the uterus is a kind of tube which is just going to terminate in form of the narrow tube that is called as cervix, and cervix is continued in form of the tube like structure that is called as the vagina. So vagina means this is a kind of narrow continuation of the uterus. So uterus, vagina is what? A fibromuscular tube. Fibromuscular tube, fibrous tissues, and the muscular tissues. The two types of the tissues are there which are present and to form the vagina. So vagina is consist of or formed of the two types of tissue, that is fibrous tissue and the muscular tissues. This is highly vascular. Highly vascular, you know very well. The vascular means the richly blood supplied, rich supply of the blood. So highly vascular, and it is lined internally by the mucous membrane. So vagina is highly vascular and lined internally by the mucous membrane. Always it is being supplied with the release of the mucus, and the mucus is present over there. And this is referred as the copulatory structure of the female. Copulatory structure of the female means what? This is the structure which receives the penis during the mating process or the copulation process. Very important question that I am just going to deal here. Always in the previous lecture only we have seen that the medium of the vagina is always acidic, and while discussing about the semen and the other accessory glands of the human male reproductive system, we have seen the glands are just going to release out the semen to neutralize the acidity of vagina. So here I am just going to discuss how the acidity of vagina is being maintained and what is the importance of this. So here just take care. During the active reproductive life of the female, the vagina is filled up with a bacteria that is called as Lactobacillus acidophilus. Are you getting my point? During the active reproductive life, the vagina contains a bacteria that is called as Lactobacillus acidophilus. That Lactobacillus acidophilus is a kind of bacteria which is going to produce the lactic acid from the glycogen whatever is stored there in the muscle. I think you have very much clear the data about that. The muscle is storing the glucose in form of the glycogen, and the vagina is a muscular structure, so muscle is having glycogen. So that glycogen is continuously being converted in form of the lactic acid by the use of that bacteria that is called as Lactobacillus acidophilus. It is going to produce the lactic acid, and due to the continuous production of the lactic acid, the pH of vagina is always maintained in between 3.5 to 4.9. So pH of vagina is always what? The 4.9, and 3.5 means it falls in between 3.5 to 4.9. So remember, the acidic nature of vagina is maintained by a bacteria that is called as Lactobacillus acidophilus, which is going to produce the lactic acid by the oxidation of or by the conversion of glycogen, which maintains the acidic pH, that is 3.9 to 3.5 to 4.9. So what is the importance of such kind of the acidic pH there in the vaginal structure, or what is the importance of such pH or acidic pH there in the vagina? So remember, this acidic pH inhibits the growth of microbes there in the vaginal tube. This pH is going to check the growth of microorganisms, the harmful microorganisms in the vagina. So it keeps the vagina safe from the infection of any other type of the pathogens or microbe. So if we are just going to discuss the basic function of the vagina, so function of vagina is what? This is working as this is working for two major function. It works as the copulatory canal and works as the birth canal. Copulatory canal means it is the tube-like structure which receives the penis during the process of copulation, and at that time it receives the semen from the male reproductive part, that is penis. Means it is the structure which receives the semen and along with the sperm, which aids to the process of fertilization. Here only this is going to be received only. And remember, in the previous lecture only, when we have studied about the secretions of the glands glands of the human male reproductive system, we have seen one of the component was present there in the seminal fluid, that is called as Prostaglandin is a kind of substance which can constrict the vaginal muscle to help out the sucking of the semen thereon. So here the vagina is going to suck up the semen from the male reproductive part, that is called as penis. Second thing, after the complete maturation of the fetus has been expelled out through the vagina only, so that time it is acting as the birth canal. So it act as the birth canal during the parturition. So it receives the semen during the matting, so that time it is working as the copulatory canal, and at the time of childbirth it is working as a birth canal. So is it clear to you all what is vagina? Vagina is copulatory structure of female, that is completely a fibromuscular tube like structure, okay, work as copulatory canal as well as the birth canal. Now moving on to the next structure. The next structure what we are discussing, that is vulva. Vulva is nothing. Vulva is the external genitalia. External genitalia means what? The external reproductive structures of the females. So external genitalia includes following the structures. One by one we'll see the structures. The first structure that is being included there in the external genitalia is called as vestibule. What is vestibule? It contains the opening of vagina, urethra, hymen. What is vestibule? Vestibule is a kind of cavity. Vestibule is a kind of a structure which contains the opening of the vagina, urethra and hymen. We'll see each and every structure one by one. So vestibule is the structure which contains the opening of vagina. Just now we have discussed urethra. We knows very well the common tube of sperm and the urine. So this is the tube of urinary passage that is also going to join at the opening only, and hymen also. So this is a kind of common opening which contains the opening of all these three tubes. This is also called as urinogenital sinus. You can understand the genital means what? The reproductive part. Urino means what? The urinary part. So here also this is a common structure from where the urine and semen can get discharged out. So vestibule, how it discharges or how it is being continued or communicated with internal and external atmosphere. This has the two openings by which it communicate or continued with external and internal atmosphere. One opening is called as urethral opening, which receives the secretion of the urethra that lies on the upper end. One opening of the vestibule is called as urethral opening, that lies on the upper end, receives the opening of urethra, and another opening is called as vaginal orifice, that is lying on the lower side. Next opening or two opening of the vestibules are there. Urethral opening on the upper side which receives the opening of the urethra or opening of urethra tube here only, and second one is called as vaginal orifice by which the vagina is opens here in the vestibule. So vestibule is a common origin of hymen, vagina and urethra, and here it is having two type of opening. For one opening for the urethra, that is called as urethral opening lying on the upper side, and another one is for the vaginal opening, that is called as the vaginal orifices. So now moving on to the next structure after the vestibule, that is called as labia majora. Labia word looks like a fold, muscular fold. Labia word is used for the structure that is a kind of muscular fold. So what is labia majora? Labia majora is a fleshy fold of skin, which covers the vaginal opening. The vaginal opening or vaginal orifice is covered externally by the fleshy fold of the skin. It is covered externally by the covering of the skin of fleshy or thick or thick or puffy skin fold. That puffy skin fold is called as labia majora. Are you getting my point? The fleshy fold of the skin which covers the vaginal opening is called as labia majora. And remember, the outer surface of the labia majora is having so many glands, that is called as the sebaceous gland. The outer surface of the labia majora is covered with the sebaceous gland. Once again, the important point is there. Labia majora is a fleshy fold of the skin which covers the vaginal opening, and it is having the sebaceous glands on their external surface. The sweet gland and the hair follicles, that all are present on the surface of the labia majora. So labia majora is a fold of skin, is a covering of skin which is present at the vaginal opening, and it is covered externally by the sebaceous gland, sweet gland and the hair follicle. And one more important, most important question for the NEET and other examination, just remember, the labia majora is considered as the homologous structure to the scrotum. Homologous structure to the scrotum. What do you mean by the homologous structure? Homologous means what? The structures which are similar in origin in structure, but they are not similar in the function. Means what? The labia majora is not having any role in regulation of the temperature, but it is similar in the structure to the scrotal sac. So is it clear to you? Also, two structures we have covered. Vestibule is the common opening for the urethra, and vagina will have the two opening called as urethral opening and the vaginal orifice. Urethral opening for the urethra, vaginal orifice for the vagina. Labia majora, the skin fold which covers the vestibule, covers externally the vestibule, will have the sebaceous gland, sweet gland and some of the hairs, and this is homologous to the scrotum. So now moving on to the next structure of the female external genitalia are the part of vulva. The next one is labia minora. Labia minora is again a kind of a skin fold which present just below the labia majora. What is labia minora? Labia, once again the skin fold, so that is present just below the labia majora. So they are smaller in the size, that is why they are called as labia minora. So labia minora are the two small fold of the skin which are present just below the labia majora. Now next one is the forchati. So forchati is the structure which is formed by the fusion of labia minora. So labia majora, once again I am just going to clear you out. Labia majora, the topmost skin fold, flaccid and the larger in the size, just below that labia minora, and labia minora is going to fuse together at the posterior end and forms the fork like structure, a scissor like structure or a fork like structure. That fork like structure which is produced by the fusion of the labia minora is called as forchati. What is forchati? Forchati is a fork like structure which is formed by the fusion of the labia minora. And one important thing, the labia, the forchati is lying just behind the anus only. So forchati and the anus will have a kind of distance present in between that. So and gap is present in between the forchati and the anus. So the gap between the forchati and the anus is called as perineum. Remember, this is important question. So once again I am repeating, the forchati means what? Is a kind of fork like structure which is being produced by the fusion of labia minora on the posterior end, and that is going to continue with the anus, but the forchati and anus will have a gap in between them. That gap is called as perineum. So the area which is present between forchati and anus is called as perineum. So it is clear to you all. Now moving on to the next, that is clitoris. So clitoris, just now we have discussed in the posterior region the labia minora is going to fuse and form the forchati, but the labia minora in the anterior region are going to fuse together and form the clitoris. In the posterior region, the labia minora fuse to form the forchati, and in the anterior region, the labia minora fuse to form the clitoris. The clitoris is very unique structure. This is small, cylindrical, and very important point that I am just pointing out, that is an erectile structure. Clitoris is what? A small, cylindrical and erectile. Erectile tissue means what? That is having a capacity of erection and relaxation. So this is a kind of erectile tissue which is made by the two labia minora. Posteriorly, the fusion of labia minora gives the forchati, and anteriorly the fusion of labia minora is going to produce the clitoris. Where it is being found? It is located just above the urethral opening. Where we can report the clitoris? The clitoris is present just above the urethral opening. You know very well, the vestibule is having two type of opening. Vestibule is having two type of opening. One is called as vaginal orifice, the lower one, and the upper one is called as urethral orifice. So this is present just above the urethral opening. So it is easy to find out, locate out the clitoris on. And very important point, the clitoris is very much homologous to the human male penis. It is similar to the penis. Means homologous means, once again I am just saying, the structure which is similar in origin and structure, but they are not having the same type of the function. And why this is considered as the homologous? Remember, because this is also made of two erectile bodies, that is called as corpora cavernosa. Clitoris is homologous to the penis. Why? Because it is also made of the two erectile tissues called as corpora cavernosa. If you have remember, in the penis also we have seen two tissues were there, corpora cavernosa and corpus spongiosum. So corpus spongiosum is not present here, but corpora cavernosa is present in the clitoris also. And one more similarity is there. The clitoris is covered up at the upper side with a kind of muscular fold that is called as prepuce. Are you getting my point? The prepuce was also the structure present there in the penis. So here the clitoris is having corpora cavernosa covered externally with the prepuce or skin fold. So that is why we can say that is similar to the penis in their structure and origin. So this is the homologous structure to the penis. But remember, the clitoris is not having any direct involvement in the process of reproduction in the female. So that is why we are saying that is the homologous to the penis, not analogous to the penis. So what is clitoris? The anterior fusion of labia minora will give rise the clitoris, and it is present just above the urethral opening, homologous to the penis. Why homologous to the penis? Because it is also made of the corpora cavernosa and having the prepuce as the external surface. Now moving on to the next structure, that is called as the hymen. Dear students, the vaginal orifice is covered by a partially covered by a fold of mucous membrane. That fold of mucous membrane is called as hymen. Are you getting my point? Once again I am repeating, the vaginal opening is partially covered by a fold of mucous membrane. That fold of mucous membrane is called as hymen. The fold of mucous membrane is called as hymen. Why I just told you the partially covered? Because this structure is also responsible for discharging out of the waste material or discharging out of the blood and other damaged tissues of the uterus during the menstrual cycle or menstrual bleeding. So that is not completely closed, but this is a kind of thin and delicate membranous structure present over there. The structure is made of the mucous membrane. Normally this structure is delicate. The delicate structure is going to abort, the delicate structure is going to rupture during the first intercourse or first sexual intercourse in case of the female. So that is why the peoples are having a belief that if the female is not having the hymen present in them, so they are having the previous experience of the sexual exposure or previous experience of the intercourse, sexual intercourse. But my dear child, just remember, the hymen is a thin delicate membrane and can break down by many of the factors like that the sudden fall, jump, some of the sports activities, biking, cycling, horse riding, jumping, anything can damage this hymen. So we cannot say the hymen is a reliable indicator of the virginity in a female. Remember, this question is a question asked in NCERT examination कि why does the hymen is not considered as the reliable indicator of the reliable indicator of virginity in the female. Why this is? Because hymen can distort, hymen can damage, hymen can rupture due to the many of the factors like the sports activities, sudden fall, jump, horse riding, biking, bicycling. Even though some vaginal devices are being employed, due to that vaginal devices also the hymen can get damaged. So hymen cannot be used as the evidence or proof, or we can say the indicator for maintenance or indicator for expressing the virginity of the female, or female has not undergone the previous sexual intercourse. So moving on to the next structure of the female reproductive system or female reproductive external genitalia, that is vulva, that is called as mons pubis or mons veneris. So what is mons pubis? Pubis means what? The pubic region. So in the pubic region only a pad of thick subcutaneous connective tissue is present. A pad of thick subcutaneous connective tissue is present in the pubis region only, just below, in between the two thighs. In the pubis region a pad of subcutaneous connective tissue is present, that is called as mons pubis, because the in between the pubis is there, in the pubis region is there, that is why it is called as mons pubis. It is a pad of subcutaneous connective tissue in the pubis region, and it is having some of the hair appearance there in the adult female, not in the child, but it is present in the adult female. The hairs are present there in the adult female, that are called as mons hairs. Now moving on to the next. So students, till now we have completed the complete portion of the female reproductive system, the ducts also associated with that. Today we have discussed the vulva. Vulva is made of following structure, which are vestibule, that is the opening, the common opening of vagina and urethra. The labia majora, the skin fold, covers the vestibule. The labia minora, the small fold below the below the labia majora, the fourchette, the posterior fusion of the labia minora, clitoris, the anterior fusion of the labia minora, which is similar to the penis or homologous to the penis. Then the hymen, a thin mucous membrane covering over the vaginal orifice or vaginal opening, which is considered as an indicator of the virginity, but that is not a reliable indicator. Why it has been that we have seen already. The mons pubis, the subcutaneous connective tissue present in the pubis region that is going to form the mons pubis will have a hair like structure that is called as mons hairs or the pubic hairs in the adult female, not in the child's or the small girls. So now moving on to the next part of the topic, that is the associated glands, the reproductive gland, as we have completed there in the human male reproductive system. Also, after completion of the major ducts, we have seen the glands which are associated with the reproductive function. So here also in the female, some of the glands are present. Those glands are going to add on to the process of reproduction. So we are just going to start with the glands. So now we are going to start up with the glands. So these glands are the accessory reproductive glands. These are not the major structure. Instead they are just going to add on the process of reproduction in the female. The first and the major gland in the female reproductive system is called as mammary gland or the breast. We'll see later on what is the meaning of breast, but basically it is known as the mammary gland. But breast is a broad term, or breast is used in the broader response or broader respects, but mammary gland is a narrower term. So we'll see how this is different thereon. So mammary gland or the breast, that is the first one. Mamme means what? Breast. That is why we are using the breast term. So you know very well, in the mammalia, this is the property of all the mammals. The mammals are having the mammary gland present there in the front region and the thorax region, and the mammary glands are lying on the thorax wall on the pectoralis major muscle. So in case of male, this is completely reduced, this is completely rudimentary, but in case of female, that is present as a kind of projections thereon. So that is paired structure. So a pair of rounded projection present on which everything is important, present on pectoralis major muscles on the front of the thorax wall. That what I said, in the thorax region, in the chest region, this is present on the pectoralis major muscle as a kind of rounded projection. Remember, it is projected out in case of females only, not in case of males, because in case of males this is rudimentary or vestigial, because not of any function. So this is functional in the female. Just now we have discussed this is functional only in the females, but non-functional or rudimentary or vestigial in case of the males. So functional mammary gland is considered as the characteristic feature of the female. This is referred as the characteristic feature of the females. Why this is characteristic feature of the females? All the females are going to release out the milks during the breeding period or after their childbirth to ensure the growth and nutrition of the child thereon, because initially the child has to completely depend on the nutrition provided by the mother. During the embryonic development, mother's placenta has taken the responsibility, but after the childbirth, child is not able to have a kind of nutritive requirement from the other outer atmosphere, so it has completely depending upon the mother. So on that situation, the mammary glands are getting functional to release out the milks thereon. So now moving on to that, how these mammary glands are become functional, or how these mammary glands are getting reduced or degenerated or getting rudimentary or vestigial. So remember, the functionality of this mammary gland depends on the hormones. So this functionality of mammary gland depends on the estrogen and progesterone. Two hormones are there in females. These two are called as the female hormones. So these hormones are being released by the pituitary also and the ovary also. In ovary, theca interna is the layer. Pituitary gland is also going to release out. So under the influence of these two hormones, the mammary gland is going to become a functional mammary gland. So when the level of these estrogen hormone is higher, that time they are being functional. But when the level of estrogen is quite low, that time the mammary gland will be present, but they are not being considered as the functional, since they are not able to produce the milk. So here remember a very important question: their functionality or their function is depending upon the level of estrogen and the progesterone, and the low level of estrogen is reported in the male. So that is why the growth of mammary gland is reduced therein, so they are not able to produce out the milk neuron. So now moving on to the major topic of our, that is breast. So breast, I just told you, the breast term is used in the vast reference or vast incident. So breast is what, why we are just saying the breast is used in the vast reference. The breast is a combination of the nipple, areola, adipose tissue along with the mammary gland. Mammary gland is the part of the breast, not the mammary gland is the breast. So mammary gland including adipose tissue, areola and the nipple, all four structures are going to make the breast. So nipples are the structures which are going to release out the milk present on the external surface only. The areola is a kind of a structure which is lying just closer to the nipple. This is a kind of hyperpigmented structure like grayish pink. This is having a grayish pink color. Hyperpigmented structure means it is having more pigment than the nipple, that is going to surround the nipple. So rounded hyperpigmented area. Remember, areola have some of the areolar glands present. The areolar glands are the modified sebaceous glands. Are you getting my point? The areola means the hyperpigmented circular area present around the nipple. These are called as areolar glands. So areolar glands are having many of the sebaceous glands. Internally, now we are moving on to the internal. So externally this is made of what, nipple and areola, and the internal point of view when we are just going to see, so that time it is having some of the fibrous tissues, many of the fatty tissues, or we can say the adipose tissues, along with the mammary glands. So internally the breast is consist of these three tissues: fibrous tissues, adipose tissues or fatty tissues, and the mammary gland. Externally areola and nipple, internally fibrous tissues, adipose tissues and mammary gland. Fibrous tissues is going to support out the mammary gland and the other structures, alveoli and other structures present inside the mammary gland. Adipose tissues is going to provide the puffiness, size, shape is being maintained by the adipose tissue. Actually the size of breast and shape of the breast is depending upon the amount of adipose tissue. But remember, the amount of adipose tissue does not have any kind of the influence over the milk letting down process or milk synthesis. That is not going to affect the functionality of the mammary gland. Means we cannot say if the breast is having more amount of adipose tissue, so we'll have the capacity to produce the more amount of the milk. So that is a kind of rumor only. So remember, the adipose tissue is only a kind of supportive tissue which is going to provide the shape and the weight and size to the mammary gland, not included or not associated with the production of the milk. So moving on to the next, the major structure that we have to discuss, that is called as mammary gland. So the first very important point, the mammary gland are modified sweet gland. Remember, if you have remember in the previous lectures of the class 11th, when we were discussing the human anatomy and the physiology, that time we have seen many type of the glands. Basically sweet gland and the sebaceous glands are the major gland. So many of the glands are the modified structure of these sweet gland and sebaceous gland. So in the NEET examination, most of the time that kind of the questions have been asked, okay, what kind of the structures they are, or what these glands are modified structures of which gland, is it from sebaceous or is it from the sweet gland? So mammary gland are the modified sweet gland, they are not modified sebaceous gland. Remember, in areolar tissue, that is sebaceous glands present, there in the mammary gland the sweet gland is present, that is a modified form. So now moving on to the internal structure, the mammary gland is considered as the compound lobular and alveolar gland. Compound lobular and alveolar gland means to say this is made of many of the lobules and the alveolus present inside. So the complete structure of mammary gland is made of lobules and alveoli. So how the structure is being formed, now we are just going to discuss the structural point of view. So remember, due to the arrangement of the adipose tissue inside the mammary gland, the entire lobe of each mammary gland is going to divide into the 15 to 20 lobe. Are you getting my point? Due to the arrangement of adipose tissue inside the mammary gland, the mammary gland is itself, each mammary gland is itself going to divide into 15 to 20 lobes. Remember, compound lobular glands. So mammary gland is composed of 15 to 20 lobes. If the question asks how these lobes are being formed, so that is being formed due to the presence of the adipose tissue. Now these lobes are once again going to divide in form of the many of the lobules. Are you getting my point? First, what we have seen, the mammary gland is the compound lobular gland. So due to the presence of adipose tissue, firstly the mammary gland is composed of 15 to 20 lobes. Now each and every lobes are being divided into many of the lobules. We can understand well the structure of the mammary gland with the help of this flow chart. So here each mammary gland is consist of the 15 to 20 lobes. Now the lobes are divided into many of the lobules. Now each and every lobules are having many of the small cells like a cluster of the grapes. If you have remember such kind of the cluster we have seen there in the structure of lungs also, those clusters are called as alveolus. So here also we are saying the same type of the cells, we are observing the same type of the cell. In each lobule we are having the grape like cluster of the cells. Some cells are there which are arranged in form of the cluster. So these cells are called as alveoli. And my dear child, this is very important question because alveoli are the actual cell which are having ability to produce the milk. So whenever question is there which cell of the mammary gland is involved in the production of milk, so alveoli is the structure which is involved in the production of milk. So milk production is the capacity, or milk production is the responsibility of alveoli. So after formation of milk, the alveoli stores it for the some time until and unless it is being demanded to release out. So after storage, now how the mammary gland is going to release out the milk outside. So in alveoli it is being formed. The alveoli is a grape-like cluster of the cell, that is the milk secreting gland. So milk is secreted after the requirement or at the time of requirement. So from each alveoli some of the tubules are being originated. Those tubules are called as mammary tubules. The finest tubule, the first tubule from which the mammary milk has to release out. So mammary tubules, many of the mammary tubules once again going to join to form a duct that is called as mammary duct. Now many of the mammary duct is going to join and form a kind of thick swollen structure. That thick swollen structure is called as mammary ampulla or lactiferous sinus. Once again the alveoli is going to release out the milk in fine tubules associated with itself only, that is called as mammary tubules. Now these mammary tubules joins together to form the mammary ducts, and many of the mammary duct joins together to form a single large expanded structure that is called as what? Ampulla. So mammary ampulla or lactiferous sinus. So that is being formed by the joining of mammary duct. So remember this structure is lying just closer to the nipple only, means what? This is the final place from where the milk has to release out. So this is an expanded structure. This ampulla always means the expanded structure. Lactiferous sinus we are saying, so sinus means also a kind of cavity. So this cavity is going to store the milk before the release it out. Are you getting my point? What is the function of mammary ampulla? Mammary ampulla is going to store the milk before the release it out from the nipple only. So at the time of releasing, whenever the signals are being received, so that mammary ampulla discharges the milks into the lactiferous ducts. What happens? It is being stored there into the mammary ampulla or lactiferous sinus. When the signals occurs, the signals will be given by the suckling of the newborn babies. The newborn babies are going to provide the stimulus to the pituitary also, under the influence of which some hormones are being released, that prolactin, everything we'll see, and under the influence of that milk production will also occur and the milk release also occur. So mammary ampulla will release out the milks there into the lactiferous duct. A single lactiferous duct will form from a single lobe. This has to be remembered. From each lobe one individual lactiferous duct is there. Lactiferous, lacti means milk, ferrous bearing, lactiferous duct. That lactiferous ducts are going to open into the nipples, and from nipples the milk will have to be discharged outside. So once again I'm just going to define the structure properly. The mammary gland, compound lobular gland, so that is being divided into the 15 to 20 lobes by the partition of the adipose tissues. Now each lobes will have lobules. The lobules will have some grape like bunching of the cell, that is called as alveoli, that is actual milk secreting cells. These milk secreting cells will discharge the milk there in the fine tubular structure that is called as mammary tubules. These mammary tubules join to form a duct that is called as mammary duct. Mammary duct reaches near to the nipples and expand to form the mammary ampulla, which stores the milk for the short time. At the time of discharging, each mammary ampulla going to open into the lactiferous duct. From each lobe of the lobule of the mammary gland, each single lactiferous duct is being originated. Now this lactiferous duct opens into the nipples and finally the milk is discharged to the outside. So is it clear to you all? Some more points I'm just going to discuss about the milk production and the milk synthesis. Remember, What is the function of a mammary gland? Function means what? The functional mammary gland. The functional mammary gland is known for the synthesis and release of the milk. Functional mammary gland or function of mammary gland is to form the milk, is to release out the milk. So formation of milk and release of the milk is called as let down of the milk. So both the process together means what? Formation of milk and releasing out of the milk combinedly called as lactation. What is lactation? Lactation means the process of formation of the milk or synthesis of milk and releasing out of the milk. We'll discuss the process later on also during the embryonic development. And remember, the milk is going to be produced under the influence of hormone that is called as prolactin. It is called as milk producing hormone. We have discussed this topic or this hormone during the endocrinology. So milk produced under the influence of prolactin, but at the time of milk ejection, the oxytocin is the hormone which is working on the mammary gland and going to contract it so that the ampulla will discharge the milk there into the nipples and will discharge into the body of discharge into the mouth of the newborn babies. Just now we have discussed the stimulus for the milk formation is being provided by the suckling of newborn. Very important question, from where do the stimulus for the milk formation or milk release begins? So that stimulus is given from the suckling of the newborn. And remember, the production rate in the human female of the milk is around 1 to 2 liter milk per day. Every day the human females can produce around 1 to 2 liter of milk. We'll see some more details about the milk production and other properties of the milks during the embryonic development. But here only the milk is having a perfect combination of the water, fat, casein protein, lactose sugar, some minerals like sodium, calcium, phosphorus, potassium, but it will have a less amount or traces of the vitamin C and almost none iron. We can say iron is not present there, or if it is present there in very trace amount. So this is what about the milk. Now we are just going to see the structure diagram of the mammary gland, so that once again we could revise the concept of the mammary gland. Mammary gland is very important question for your examination, dear student. So just we are going to discuss the diagram of mammary gland. So here in the diagram you can easily observe this structure is drawn, that is pectoralis major muscle on which the mammary gland is projected outward. Now we are moving on to the next. We have seen the mammary gland is having the deposition of the adipose tissue. So this structure is going to show the deposition of the adipose tissue. Due to the deposition of adipose tissue, now the mammary gland is divided or composed of the lobes. So this structure or this portion is going to show the structure of lobes. Inside lobes we have seen a compound lobular gland. So inside the lobe we have seen many of the lobules are present. So this is lobe. Now these all are the lobules. These are the partition inside the lobe. So these are called as lobules. Inside lobules we have seen a grape-like bunches of the cells. So these grape-like bunches of the cells are called as alveoli. So alveoli are the cells, are actual cells which are responsible for the production of the milk. So here from each alveoli some fine tubules are being originated, by which the alveoli are going to release out the milk. These tubules are called as mammillary tubules. You can understand the mammillary tubules are here. Now mammillary tubules joins to form a thick tube that is called as mammillary duct. Now mammary duct is going to expand and form a thick structure that is called as mammary ampulla or lactiferous sinus. The mammary ampulla is finally going to convert in form of a duct that is going to open directly to the nipple, that is called as lactiferous duct. And this is what the nipple, each nipple is having a particular lactiferous duct from a particular lobule of the mammary gland. So nipple is having the combination of many of the lactiferous duct, and here we can observe a small pigmented area just below the nipple that is called as areola. So once again I am just going to show the pectoralis major. The projection over the pectoralis major is called as the breast. So that is having nipples, areola. Inside it what is there? The adipose tissue. The adipose tissue is going to divide the mammary gland in form of the lobes. So that is lobes. Inside lobes any of the division or partitions are there. That partition or division is called as what? The lobules. Each lobules is having some of the milk producing cells that is called as alveoli. These alveoli are going to release out their milk with the help of some thin tubule that is called as mammary tubules. Now mammary tubules are going to join together to form a big duct that is called as mammary duct. Now mammary duct nearby the ampulla, nearby the nipple, is going to form a expanded structure that is called as lactiferous sinus or mammary ampulla. Mammary ampulla is going to convert in form of the lactiferous duct through which the milk has to be let down or released outside of the body from the nipple only, and now it is the nipple. So this is what the structure of a nipple or ampulla. So now moving on to the next structure, next type of the gland. So mammary gland is clear to you all now. Now moving on to the next type of the gland, next type of the sex gland or accessory gland in the human females. Now the next gland is vestibular gland. So we are discussing the accessory glands there in the human females. So first gland we have discussed, that is mammary gland or the breast. Now we are discussing the second gland, that is vestibular gland. Vestibular gland is also known as the Bartholin gland. This is a paired structure and present on the each side of the vaginal opening. This is present on the each side of the vaginal opening, and this is similar to the Cowper's gland of the male. In male this is Cowper's gland, in female this is Bartholin gland. So Bartholin gland is similar to the Cowper's gland of the male. So this is present nearby the opening of the vagina or vaginal orifices. What is the function of the vestibular gland? Vestibular gland is going to release out the alkaline fluid for the lubrication and neutralization of the urinary acidity. What is the secretion of, or what is the secretion of vestibular gland? The secretion of vestibular gland is alkaline fluid that is working for the lubrication of the vagina, and second thing, it is going to neutralize the acidity of the urinary passage. Now next one, the last gland of the female reproductive system is the para-urethral gland. Para, beside urethral, urethra gland means what? This is present beside the urethra. So this is also called as gland of skin. Para-urethral gland is also known as gland of skin. This is homologous to the prostate gland, present in between the urethral and vaginal orifices, and this is the structure which is going to release out the mucus. So in very short, I am just going to wind up the concept. Vestibular gland, also called as the Bartholin gland, present on each side of the vaginal orifices and homologous to the Cowper's gland. It is going to release an alkaline secretion which is working for the lubrication of the vagina and neutralizing the urinary acidity, and para-urethral gland present in between the urethra and the urethral and the vaginal orifices, homologous to the prostate gland, also known as the gland of skin. Mucus is being released from there, so that is going to maintain the smoothness or the sliminess of the female reproductive system or female reproductive tract. So this is what about the female reproductive structures. We have completed the structures in the first part of the video we have completed the ovary, oviduct and the uterus. In the second part we have completed the vagina and the other external genitalia along with the associated sex gland or associated glands to the human females. Now in the further lectures we'll discuss the physiology of the human females and male reproductive system. We'll begin with the gametogenesis and other function. So just it is my request, a humble request to you all, if you likes the video, so please press the like button. If you wish to continue, if you wish to watch the video continuously, so please press the bell icon and just get subscribe the channel so that you could get continuous updates regarding the new video. Thank you.